into thin air. 1. Everest Summit, May 10th, 1996, 29,028 feet. Straddling the top of the world, one foot in China and the other in Nepal, I cleared the ice from my oxygen mask, hunched a shoulder against the wind, and stared absently down at the vastness of Tibet. I understood on some dim, detached level that the sweep of earth beneath my feet was a spectacular sight. I'd been fantasizing about this moment and the release of emotion that would accompany it for many months. But now that I was finally here, actually standing on the summit of Mount Everest, I just couldn't summon the energy to care. It was early in the afternoon of May 10th, 1996. I hadn't slept in 57 hours. The only food I'd been able to force down over the preceding 3 days was a bowl of ramen soup and a handful of peanut M&Ms. Weeks of violent coughing had left me with 2 separated ribs that made ordinary breathing an excruciating trial. At 29,028 feet up in the troposphere, so little oxygen was reaching my brain that my mental capacity was that of a slow child. Under the circumstances, I was incapable of feeling much of anything except cold and tired. I'd arrived on the summit a few minutes after Anatoly Bukreev, a Russian climbing guide working for an American commercial expedition, and just ahead of Andy Harris, a guide on the New Zealand-based team to which I belonged. Although I was only slightly acquainted with Bukreev, I'd come to know and like Harris well during the preceding 6 weeks. I snapped 4 quick photos of Harris and Bukreev striking summit poses, then turned and headed down. My watch read 1:17 p.m. All told, I'd spent less than 5 minutes on the roof of the world. A moment later, I paused to take another photo, this one looking down the southeast ridge, the route we had ascended. Training my lens on a pair of climbers approaching the summit, I noticed something that until that moment had escaped my attention. To the south, where the sky had been perfectly clear just an hour earlier, a blanket of clouds now hid Pumori, Amadablam, and the other lesser peaks surrounding Everest. Later, after 6 bodies had been located, after a search for 2 others had been abandoned, after surgeons had amputated the gangrenous right hand of my teammate Beck Weathers, people would ask why. If the weather had begun to deteriorate, had climbers on the upper mountain not heeded the signs? Why did veteran Himalayan guides keep moving upward, ushering a gaggle of relatively inexperienced amateurs, each of whom had paid as much as $65,000 to be taken safely up Everest, into an apparent death trap? Nobody can speak for the leaders of the 2 guided groups involved, because both men are dead. But I can attest that nothing I saw early on the afternoon of May 10th suggested that a murderous storm was bearing down. To my oxygen-depleted mind, the clouds drifting up the grand valley of ice known as the Western Cwm looked innocuous, wispy, insubstantial.